This is Life Transformation Radio. Prepare to engage. Seatbelt activated. Download initiated. Your quantum journey of transformation begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. Hi, I'm Rob Actis, best-selling author of The Law of Action, voice actor, business mindset coach, the podcast whisperer, and Mr. Action himself. Here at Life Transformation Radio, we are committed to share more about real life, love, the power of positivity, romance, and of course, laughter. We care about helping others find their internal drive and purpose, and we celebrate life's challenges and overcoming them. On the show, my guests are amazing people who are forces for good in the world around them and live a life of transformation. My guest today, she does just that. Today in this episode, Tien and I discuss how transformation is a journey. And boy, could I relate to that. So if you want to learn that everything happens for a reason, oh, it does. Understand that it can be very uncomfortable to stay static and that transformation is something to look forward to these days, this is the show for you. Tien is an intuitive mindset coach, author, and podcast host. With over 20 years of experience, she knows what it's like to juggle a successful career with being a mom, yet still feel like she hasn't gotten anywhere. No matter how hard she worked to achieve more in life, she knew that she couldn't achieve it if she kept pushing herself to conform to this definition of success that was expected of her. This is what motivated her to create the S.U.C.C.E.S.S Method for the ambitious woman to achieve success they never thought possible. Tien, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Thanks for having me, Rob. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. So first of all, you're in the right company because when people say intuitive, that just right in the wheelhouse for Life Transformation Radio. So
love it.
I love the spiritual woo-woo stuff. And I say that with great respect because I didn't used to be woo-woo and spiritual and universal, and I really didn't believe in all this stuff. I had people around me that all did, and I was like, oh, okay, that kind of, but it just isn't. And then I had a near-death experience, and then all of a sudden, wow, I see things through a different lens. So, I'm excited that you're here today. So, let's talk about, first of all, 20 years ago, what was the transformation that got you to where you are now?
That's a great question. I actually never thought about the transformation 20 years ago. I think that it was a life transformation in the sense that I moved from one phase of my life to the next, meaning I went from university into my quote unquote, the start of my career. And so that pushed me into a space that I just wasn't necessarily ready for, and into like a reality or a realm that I never really was expecting. Let's just put it that way.
So kind of like expected, like what's next? Almost to the point of like you meet someone, you date them, you get engaged, you get married, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get married. So you went through your college and all of a sudden, oh, now I need to go get a lifelong career. Is that kind of what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. And then I went into I went into corporate thinking and I entered into investment banking. I was in finance. I've been in finance for the last 20 years. And I entered the space thinking it would be exciting, that people would be professional. I was expecting them to behave the way that I would behave, and the way that, like the Harvard business cases made it sound like great management. People all do this. And it's like people working together. And as soon as I stepped in there, I was like, this is not it. What happened? And I just wasn't prepared for that.
It's like high school all again. All the little cliques. And, a long time ago, I haven't worked for anybody for decades. But when I did, I sold copiers, and I was a mobile music DJ, and I went in to sell copiers and worked for Minolta, which is very corporate. You had to wear a shirt and a tie. And I thought it was going to be amazing. I wanted to talk to everybody. And the first week I was there, I was doing telemarketing. And the first week that I was there, I discovered that this is way different than what I thought. And the woman who was sitting in the office with me that I shared an office with in telemarketing, she's like, Hey, Rob, she closed the door. She goes, here's the deal. Knock it off. That is not how this operates. And I'm like, I don't understand. Well, I'm a hard worker and I have a work ethic. So I was making 125 calls a day. She averages 20 to 25.
Interesting.
I was making everybody look bad because I was sending everybody out on appointments and stuff. And everybody was really mad at me.
You're making them work.
I was making them work. And I didn't understand that there's a culture in corporate that there's some people that have figured out ways to have jobs and they don't work. So,
Amazing.
I was a rude awakening. I'm sure that's kind of probably what you saw. People know how to stay busy and they don't do anything.
Yes, that was very much it. And it was a very different mind shift as well, right? Because in school, we were constantly working towards getting good grades. And so it was instant gratification or instant validation of the work that we put in. Whereas in corporate, they weren't giving you any of that. They weren't even giving you the time of day unless you did something really great or something really bad. And so those were the two times when you would get attention. And depending on the manager, you may only hear from them if like you were really doing something bad, right?
Right.
So it was just a major shift in terms of expectations and mindset and and kind of like what you were saying before, Rob, is that, when you were in school, the next thing we knew what we needed to do, right? From high school, we needed to go to college. From college, we needed to get a job. Then once you get your job, like, what the heck is next?
Oh, I
right?
say,
Like,
what the hell?
what do we
exactly.
do? Yeah. And so that was a big, like, kind of rude awakening as well, because it's great. You see people and they rise the corporate ladder, and that could be the success story for you too. But that never really felt right to me. And so that's where the material transformations, I'll call it, or the most recent transformations had happened for me.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. So that's one transformation. Now there's another transformation of how you got out of that. What occurred in your heart and your soul and your spirit that you transformed again into the next? And it could have been a detour or a pivot.
Yeah. So I'll be, full disclosure, I'm actually still in corporate right now. I'm working on my transition. Well,
then we're not going to bash them too much because they may hear this. Oh, she loves her job. She loves it. They're all perfect. Everybody works hard.
No, but that was a different company anyway, so I can see a little bit of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. But so with regards to this and how I found this intuitive side of me, as well as the work that I currently do outside of corporate, is this nagging feeling that I had about 5 years ago. And giving away my age, I was 40 at that time, right? And my career was going well. I was rising up in the corporate ladder. I had everything that I was supposed to have. I had just bought a new house in a nice neighborhood. I had 2 kids. I had a great husband. I had a great job. Everything sounds perfect, right? From the outside, you wouldn't think that there would be anything wrong. But I started waking up with anxiety, and I don't want to call it depression, but I'll call it a lot of frustration in terms of where I was in my life. And I kept asking, and my husband would drive me to the train stations in the morning, and I would ask him every morning, I was like, is this really all there is in life? You wake up, you go to work, you come home, you take care of the kids. And this isn't to bash on my kids or, my role as a mom. I love that, but it wasn't fulfilling enough for me. Like, I needed more.
Yeah. So how did you discover that you were intuitive, or have you always known that?
Yeah. I never knew that.
All of a sudden. So tell me this. Tell me.
So it's really interesting because during this search that I had for like what that next thing would be or what that more would be, I was looking for answers, right? Like, how can I get to that next level? And so I've always been interested in psychics. Like, I love the psychic realm, but there was always a little bit of suspicion to it too, because, you go to the street fairs and they'll give you a reading for $2 and then they'll ask you for 500, to get rid of like some bad juju, right? So like those are, it's not like that. But I started working with psychics actually as coaches, as my coaches. And so at first it was really cool because they could give me guidance and it felt really good. And they provided some clarity and some of the answers that I was looking for, giving me a peek into, like what the next steps would look like for me. And I was like, oh, this is really exciting, right? So it's kind of like they gave me a little bit of the candy and then like getting me more excited and addicted for more.
Right.
And then so during these coaching sessions, it became known. They basically shared it with me as well, but we did practices and exercises, and I kind of found out that I was also an intuitive, which is really cool too. And I was like, yeah, it was really exciting to be able to identify this part of myself that I never thought I was cool enough to be.
Oh, you're cool. You're cool.
Thanks, Rob.
So you discovered this, and then how did your life transform from after this discovery?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
I'm excited. Like, I'm
right,
excited.
Rob?
Like,
Yeah,
tell me.
Like, I'm sure you can relate as well with your near-death experience. You come out of these things with this more in-depth understanding of life that's around us, right? We don't take it for face value anymore. And then it's just this constant understanding of questions and the relevance of questions in our life. And giving us, and it's interesting because sometimes I think that as humans or as individuals, we tend to think we're alone and nobody understands us. But when you realize that you have a team, like whatever you want to call it, spirit, universe, energy, like when you realize that we are all just energy and we have a team that we can't even see, and they've been supporting us and working with us and guiding us since birth and before, quite frankly, it's just like, oh, that's really cool, right? And then the fact that like we have these greater purposes, purpose, whatever you call it, in life, and they're here to guide us through it. It transforms everything about how you see things. So what we wanted to talk about today, Rob, was like things are happening for us. There's always a reason why things are happening, like understanding the energy behind it, understanding this non-visible side of our lives. Like it really helped to shift that perspective of everything is happening for us rather than to us, and removing the victim side of the lives that we live, right? And I think that's just the most empowering aspect of the transformation.
Yeah, so I've been feeling really stuck the last couple of days. I had some things that occurred, and I got back into my 3D world, out of my love and light and flow world, and it stifled my creativity. It stifled a lot of things. It caused me to shut down. And I woke up this morning, I was a little off, and I just trusted. I just trusted that everything's going to be okay. And I trusted that get out of my head and get into my heart and my soul. And, I talk about this all the time. I talk about it in my book, The Law of Action, is at any moment, your life can change.
Yeah.
And 99% of the people that hear that, they go, yeah, I could get hit by a car, blah, 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 blah. They always think bad. Well, you need to realize, and I think this is the most important thing, if anything you learn from this podcast, your life can change at any moment, and it can transform into something incredible that you never thought was there. You just have to let things occur. You have to be in momentum and take action. You have to do stuff. Like that's why there's a law of action, which is the missing link of the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And you need to get out of your head and get into your heart and your soul. And that's where creativity comes from. Mm-hmm. And what happens is we get in these ruts like you had in your job, in your career at that company, and it stifles us. And especially when you're intuitive, and especially when you're feeling the energy of the universe. And once it's kind of like reminds me of the movie Nemo. I always go back to this, where the turtles are in I don't know what it's called. I don't remember the movie, but they're in Australia and they're floating and they're swimming in that water, that powerful water.
In that current, right?
In the current, and they just go.
Yeah. That's
how life is supposed to be. When they start paddling and panicking and stuff like that, it throws them off and they spin out of control. When you trust the energy of life and trust that you have a team behind you, that wants you to succeed, the magic happens.
Yep. Yeah. It is amazing, isn't it? It's those. There's so much more allowance of ease into our lives at that point, because you realize that you don't have to do all the paddling all the time, and that, if you were to let go a little bit, there's a current that's going to help take you to where you need to go. And I'm sure you've seen it as well. Like, things just fall into place, and you just have to act on it, or,
Yeah.
do what you're supposed to, do what's required that takes you closer to the purpose. But it really is. It's such a life-changing experience.
And one of the things, there is so much friction and chaos surrounding us right now. And I invite you that are listening to really, you kind of just got to tune out of that. Because honestly, if you can't do something to change what's occurring, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
And you stay in your bliss bubble and you stay in your flow.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all going to be okay.
Yeah. Can I add something to that, if that's okay?
No, you can't. No, you can't
Okay.
add anything. No, it's my show. You can't add anything. No. Of course, you don't have to ask permission. This is a team effort. Absolutely.
Okay. No, I love it. So I totally agree with you. I think when you say don't scroll on social media or don't watch the news, people are like, oh my God.
I didn't say that.
But that would be ignorant.
I didn't say that.
No, I know. But I know. I said that.
Okay.
And then but the thing is that even when you're staying in your zone, even when you're focused on your own energy within, right, you are doing something.
You are.
You are contributing to the overall bliss and energy of the world. You're not adding to that fuel of hatred and, tension and greed. You're actually adding love and
light,
peace,
love and light, and peace.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
To counter all of that hatred and negative energy that's out there. So the fact that you're staying within and staying with your zone and not getting involved in the politics doesn't mean you're not actually doing anything to support love and light. You're actually adding that love and light into it.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, I mean, even take it as far as in a relationship. So with my wife and I, we have an agreement. I am not responsible in any way to make you happy. I am responsible to make me happy. It is not my job to make you happy. And her job is not to make me happy. She makes me incredibly happy, but she doesn't, but just have her in existence. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people are so worried about outside forces. And so it works really interesting, because if I'm trying to be the best Rob I can be, there's such an abundance of that it blows over to her, because I'm in this great peaceful zone. And then when she's in her great happy peaceful zone, it all contributes. And I think that's very, very important to know. And I love that you added that, is that it does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting involved in all the other circuses and all the other monkeys makes a significant impact on the world.
Yeah.
And
absolutely,
the way that this world is going to be healed is by the love and light that's generated by the people that are sending it via their hearts and souls.
Yeah.
And some people may listen to that and I go, and I don't care what you think, I'm telling you, that's the way it is. And it's proven time and time and time again.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what's happening out there in the world today is really just to force us to reevaluate, right? With the pandemic coming in, causing everybody to pause and reevaluate their life choices and priorities. And then now with the economy, and then the Ukraine and Russia war, all the other stuff that's out there, we're forced to really figure out where our priorities sit and where we want to spend that energy, right? And to really reevaluate the voices that we're listening to. And I don't mean that in a crazy comical way, but I mean that in a sincere and serious way. we've always been taught to listen to authority and to listen to other individuals, right? And then now we're being given these situations where we're forced to really reevaluate the information that we're given and to determine what is right for us. Because when we can do that, that allows us to go to that heart, right? That allows us to go within so that we can then be able to decide what our truths are and to then emanate that from within to the world outside and to share it. And I think there's going to be a lot of powerful voices that come out of this situation in the next couple of years as well, because we're already seeing it, right? Like people are tired of the status quo. They're really itching to go and get that change happen because we're seeing so many of the injustices and so many ways that the status quo isn't working for us anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel really stuck.
Yeah.
I just did a podcast that was released yesterday, my other podcast, the Living the Law of Action show, and we were talking about how people have gotten so accustomed to not engaging with other people, very many people. They're staying in their homes. They're not sending those emails. They're not reaching out. They're not amplifying their voice. And they're very lost. And I think that, that's part of being uncomfortable and staying static. They're not moving forward. And so we gave some action steps on how they can do that. So let's talk about that. It's very uncomfortable to be static, and you need to be in momentum, because when you're in momentum, the universe takes note and magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that 100% from the tip of my toes to the top of my bald head. So what is something that someone can do to have the success that they want when they see that everything is crumbling around them?
Yeah. So what I always say is when there's chaos outside of you, you go within and you reevaluate what it is.
I love that. I want you to repeat that. When there's chaos inside of you.
Nope. When there's chaos outside of you.
When there's chaos outside of you, you go within. Okay, we'll try it again. When there's chaos outside of you, you go within.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
So there's chaos going on. What does that look like to go within?
Yeah. It's really to go within and reevaluate what it is that we want, right? What it means to us. So we touched a little bit on it in terms of what we're seeing in the environment around us with the war and the pandemic and stuff like that. And it's to really go within and to question what it is that we believe in, the actions that we feel is right and that are aligned with us. And I think if you take a look at it from a success perspective as well, because you were asking about that just now, Rob, right? When we look at it from a success perspective, it's to really remove the purpose of that exercise is really just to remove the distractions around us. It's not about what your mom says you should be focused on. It's not about what the government says you should have saved in the account so you can have a futures, whatever. It's about what it is that is aligned with you from an internal perspective, right? Because my experience has shown me that chasing the money, chasing other people's dreams are extremely uncomfortable, and it's not successful at all, because then you just keep chasing because you'll never feel hungry, right? There's a book out there called The Hungry Ghost, and I totally take that analogy here in the sense of chasing something for answers, chasing answers, right? Like you're chasing answers, you're chasing a qualifier or a metric of some sort of success. You're chasing it, but yet you don't have any affiliation with it other than the fact that you're supposed to. Somehow, somewhere, you were told you were supposed to, right? But then when you go within, when you go within, you know what the truth is, right? That comes out. You know what matters to you, and that comes out. And I think this is one thing that I think we've all forgotten. I don't know since when, but we've all forgotten, and we've all been given our power away on this one, is that we all have the answers that sit within. We all have them.
Absolutely.
Right? And then so when we keep asking other people like, oh, did I do this right? Did is this the right answer? Should I be, maybe I should have 6 figures or 7 figures or 8 figures or whatever it is, right? Well, who cares? Like, you can have 9 figures, but is that going to satisfy you? Is that going to give you the experiences that you've been looking for in life? Is that going to fill this cup up, or, this heart cup up? Because ultimately, that's what we want. Those are the answers that we have within us in terms of like what's going to give us the experiences that really will make this life joyful and fulfilled, rather than hungry all the time.
Right. And, as someone who's had a few near-death experiences, and other people that have had near-death experiences have shared with me, is the one thing when you're facing the possibility of dying and you see it right before your eyes, they're like, I don't know if you're going to live. The one thing you just don't think about is how much money I have in the bank.
I love that.
You don't think
That
of
is so
what car you
powerful.
drive. You don't think of, I'm going to go on a trip around the world. The one thing that I thought of every single time is, wow, I really wish I could have spent more time with. That's the one thing. You regret the times that you didn't spend with the people that you love.
Yeah.
And I think that, I lost a pretty significant business over this pandemic. I lost 2 businesses. And, we didn't know where things were going to be, but I'm like, I don't care if I lose everything. If I still get to have these incredible people in my life, we're going to be just fine.
I love that.
And that's
so
hard to
powerful.
say. And it's not something that I ever said lightly. It's not something that I want. I work very hard, so I'm not going to end up with nothing. I'm just rebuilding. And, people ask me what I wanted for my birthday. My birthday was in June.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I didn't want anything. I said, what I want is you to make every effort to be at my party. That's it. You don't have to bring anything. I don't want you to think of getting me anything. What I want you to do is, if there's any chance at all of you not being at my party, I want you as my gift to be at my party.
That's amazing.
And that's what happened. And some people made some significant sacrifices, and it's better than anything that I could want. And,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's so important to really go within and to feel and experience all the answers that are there, and to get out of your head.
If you don't mind me asking, Rob, because this is out of curiosity, because as you were saying that, you had the 2 businesses that failed during the pandemic. Now, out of curiosity though, do you think that it was the time for those businesses to
Yep.
end, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So one of them, one of them is interesting. So one of them, I had it's easy to say, it's just a day spa. And I had it with partnership with a very dear friend. I did all the creative, all the marketing, all the branding, came up with all the procedures and the sales programs and all the numbers and how to sell and all that stuff. And it did quite well. We opened it up in April in the middle of a pandemic. We got the space leased. We were fighting, not with each other, but fighting with businesses to try and get product delivered so we can open up. Built it out, did it, booked it, had business in the middle of a pandemic. Right when we opened, days after we opened, we had all this business booked, and then we were closed down by the state. We weren't allowed to have people in.
Wow.
So that delayed us. So we paid rent for a couple times. And then we pivoted, and then we blossomed and we took off. We're making lots of money and changing a lot of people's lives. And it got really going good. And my ex-partner, who's now an ex-friend, sadly, she decided that she wanted all the business, that I wasn't really doing anything anymore. I wasn't actively participating, even though I was doing marketing, but that didn't kind of count because she was doing more of the hands-on. And so she cut me a check for the initial equipment that we bought, which is a very small amount because a lot of it it's a high profit business. and said, "Oh yeah, I'm done with you."
Hmm.
And there was tens of thousands of dollars extra that was there. And she said, "Yeah, that's mine." And she shut down the company. And I built up a big war chest. I kept building and trying to negotiate and build up a big war chest to sue her because I have the documents and it's my partnership and I know what I did and stuff like that. And it became so toxic and it just has such a significant negative impact on me. The devastation of a friend who I invited over for Christmas and stuff. That I'm like, it's money. It's a lot of money. And is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth it to look down on an email or a piece of paper that has her name on it in a legal environment, spending all this money because I want to be right?
Right.
And at one moment I made the decision and I took the agreement. It's kind of funny. So, I mean, significant. So I took the agreement and all of a sudden I just went like this and I just went,
wow.
And like, I just felt it that's why I wanted to do it. And I'm like, you know what? Done. So I just said, we're done. We're done. Like nothing else had to happen. We were done. And 24 hours later, I bought Life Transformation Radio. And I used the money that I had
Congrats.
for the legals. And it's amazing because this is where I feel at home. I feel I get an opportunity to amplify people's voices. And I get to talk about things that are absolutely incredible for me. Every podcast, it's always so funny because it's like, that's the podcast I need to listen to. And it's actually the podcast that we're doing that day. And it's been that way ever since. So it's been magical. So
that's amazing.
It has been really challenging. And then the other business, yeah, it was time. It would have been nice. I was a quiet, part of it. And, but my wife said to me, and it was significant, it was our retirement. She said, you know what? I trust in you and I know who you are and we'll just do it again. And to have someone that's supportive is truly remarkable. But those are not, brick and mortar business is not what I should be in. Doing what I do with my coaching and the podcasting and my voice acting and audio production and creative, that's what I'm in. And that's where I'm supposed to be. But it's not easy at the time to have something like that happen. Just saying.
I totally understand. I mean, I can't understand 100% because it hasn't happened to me, but I can only imagine how difficult it was for you at the time. But I love the fact that the universe basically realigned you so quickly, with your purpose rather than allowing you to get distracted and not being able to have you share your experiences and your wisdom and your voice and your healing out to this world the way that you're supposed to. And, and for that, deep down too, that you will be taken care of, right? Along with your wife. And so, you can only trust, like you say, you're riding the current like the turtles are and allowing for it to happen and knowing that whatever happens, it'll be okay at the end. And I think that there's so much beauty in that and there's so much power to it too.
Yeah, it's quite humbling when you just surrender that you don't do anything in this world. Like I don't do anything. Like none of this that's coming out of my mouth or anything that I do in this world is really me. It's just through the light force of energy that moves through me. Like I don't even get credit for any of this stuff. It's just, this is what comes out of me. And when you get to that point and you really realize that and you live that, magic happens. Mm-hmm. It truly, truly happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
I just think that, what's in store for all of us. And it's interesting to say this in a calm way, no matter what you see around you, I think we're going to all be just fine.
I think so too. As long Gina, as we all go within.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to have you back because I really do want to talk more about the S.U.C.C.E.S.S Method and it got a little deep. The universe just took us where we wanted to go. And I just think that's beautiful. I love it.
Me too. I love it. This was a great conversation. One of the best that I've had on any podcast. So I thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It was a joy, and I will definitely have you back because I really dig your energy. And I looked up and I'm like, wow, I thought we were like talking for just a few minutes, and we've talked a little bit longer than that. I know. It's magic because we've been in flow. So thank you so much.
I was like, Rob's kicking me off already. And then I looked at it. When you mentioned the time, I was like, oh, wow.
I know. So how does someone reach you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So they can find me on my website. It's jeantien.com. So that's JEANTIEN.com. And so they can learn more about me there. There's the contact form if they want to reach out to me. And so that's the easiest way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your support and the taking time of your busy and precious day or night to listen. We so appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me along, my very special guest, Jean, to touch your heart, move your soul, and inspire you to live a life of transformation. I'm Rob Actis. Until next time.
This is Life Transformation Radio. Download complete.